Hey guys, how you doing? It's Tom. I'm back. And you know what? In this video, I wanted to talk about. I've had a couple of comments from viewers asking me, like, why did I choose the Philippines to come and live, you know, over like Thailand or, mostly Thailand. It seems to be when guys think about coming to Asia to live, it's always usually, not always, but usually between the Philippines and Thailand, right? Um, there's some other areas like maybe Vietnam or Malaysia, Indonesia. Those are other areas of consideration, but the top two seem to be Thailand and Philippines. I've never been to Thailand. Um, I do plan on going there, to visit, and me and Amy, probably within I don't know, hopefully within the next couple of years. Um, and the and those I've never been to those other areas either. Uh, this is really the Philippines is really the only. I got to think a little bit before I say this, but yeah, it's the only Asian country I've been to. You know, um, yeah. Before this, before 2015, which was the first time I came here toward the end of the year in December. Before that, I had never been anywhere in Asia. You know, I'd only been to Europe and Egypt, and when I was in the service. Uh, just for a short time for like 3.5 weeks. It wasn't a vacation though. But but yeah, other than that, yeah, it's been all Europe. You know, was really the only other countries, or in Canada. I've been to Canada and I've been to Mexico, of course, right, and Europe, and then that's about it. You know. But anyway, yeah, I came here. I think originally I came here I was interested, and I was probably watching YouTube channels and all that way back in like 2015, right? Maybe I don't know if I started in 2014 or 2015 actually, but it probably would have been 2015. And so when I the first two trips I came here, which was at the end of 2015, and then about 2 years later, at the very beginning of 2018, uh, I came to meet a lady, and I did, the first trip, we spent the trip together and everything. And it was one of those deals where, it was kind of like I always tell people the first trip I came here was maybe like 80% good, 20% bad. But of course, the 20% was sort of like there were some red flags there, that maybe, you know, I should have learned from, or whatever. And I came, like I said, 2 years later, because 2016 was kind of a bad year for me, work wise and money wise. You know what I mean? Like in my profession in real estate. So I think I skipped that. I couldn't come that year. You know what I mean? 17 was a decent year again. 14 and 15 were really good years for me. Working. And 17 was okay and everything. So I thought, all right, I'll go back. And like I said, I probably should have just done something differently, but I came also to see the girl that I, had spent the first trip with. I came to see her again on the second trip, and I tell you what, I mean, within the first week, it was just like this was a mistake. Like we just didn't. It didn't work out. Let's just put it that way. We didn't really get along, and but unfortunately, we kind of like, we finished the trip together. You know what I mean? In 3 weeks or whatever, because I sort of had things planned, like just tourist stuff to see. Um, and we had gone to started out in Manila like usual for 4 or 5 days, and then we went to Cebu and then Dumaguete, and then back one more night in Cebu, and then just back to Manila at the end of the trip. So we were in the three cities within the Philippines on the second trip, and and it was kind of weird, you know what I mean? Like I actually got interviewed by Every Man Has a Story back last year, or toward the end of maybe the last quarter of last year, and I kind of briefly touched on this, but it was sort of like after that first week, or even really during that week, during most of the trip, really, it was almost like we were just roommates. You know what I mean? It was nothing like the first trip. Um, and so it was weird. But I mean, the only good thing I can say is that I got to see, we did see a lot of places. You know what I mean? Like in Cebu and even Dumaguete and that, right? Not much in Manila, but we had already been there on the first trip and had went to a lot of places, on the first trip in Manila, because we were there for about 8 or 9 days, I think, on that trip. And the first trip also Batangas. I spent about 9 days in Batangas also, so it was kind of like half and half. It was like Manila, Batangas. It was about approximately 9 days or so in each city. Um, so this time, like I said, we went to started out in Manila for like 4 days or whatever, and then Cebu and Dumaguete. We're in Cebu for almost 2 weeks, I think. Um, Probably over, might have been over 2 weeks. And so we went to a lot of places at least, and at least I got to see a lot of places. You know what I mean? Even though it wasn't clicking very well, like on a relationship level or whatever, that was done. Like that ship had sailed pretty much. But I did get to see stuff, which sort of came in handy on the, on later trips with me and Amy. You know what I mean? Because when I went to some of these places with Amy, I already knew, like, hey, yeah, let's go here. It's pretty cool, and I kind of knew my way around a little bit, or at least I knew where to see and where to go and stuff, like in Dumaguete and Cebu especially. Um, so that was kind of cool, you know what I mean? But I'll tell you what, it was not easy, that second trip. I mean, and then we were also at the Planet at the Red Planet Hotel, which was near Ayala in Cebu, near Ayala Mall. And Ayala Mall just had a fire. Like even before we got to Cebu, while we were in Manila, they had a fire at the Metro store, and the whole mall was shut down for like 2 weeks. And basically, for that was the 2 weeks that we were there. so so now you don't have that many places to eat anymore. You know what I mean. It's not just something to do, but it's more like places to eat. And so that was sort of, yeah, that just sort of nailed it. Like Jesus. Anything else can go wrong. Like that's what I was thinking. Um, but but anyway, it was weird, right? So when I came back from that second trip, and at that time, like I was sort of thinking in the distance about, yeah, I might want to live here, because to be honest with you, where else can you retire? Like if you're on a fixed income, you know, if you know you're only going to be making like maybe a couple grand a month, and you don't have like 2 million US in the bank or something like that, right? You good luck trying to live in the U.S. or trying to retire in the U.S. You know what I mean? When you're 62 or whatever, right? And forget about it. If I would have just stayed in the U.S., I'd been working until I was 70 at least. You know what I mean? Without a doubt. Like I mean, unless something weird happened, I hit on something real big, or got lucky or whatever. But outside of that, you can't count on that type of stuff. Oh, I'm gonna win the lottery or something. Like so. But aside from that, yeah, I'd be working just like my dad. Till I was full time working until I was 70 at least. And I think I just didn't want to do that. You know what I mean? I just couldn't. I didn't want to. I just didn't want to do that. I just felt like, hey, I want to live a little bit. I want to kind of see, and I liked the Philippines. Even after the first trip, I liked it. I liked the weather. It does get some pretty hot sometimes, a little bit extreme, but it's better than cold, man. Like I got so sick of the winters in Chicago. Like 60 plus years, of winter. Um, so so I'll say that it was part economic, right? Like I said, it was part cost of living and stuff like that. But it was also because, like, after that second trip, it's funny. I came home and I was just kind of like, oh, geez, like I was glad to be home. You know what I mean? Like in Chicago, and I was just like, man, I don't know. I had kind of a negative attitude about everything, or even about the Philippines or whatever, and and that was sort of like January of 2018, I think, right? And I even made a few videos about it, even though I didn't even really have a YouTube channel, but I just kind of made some private videos, just whatever, kind of venting about it. And I never posted them publicly or anything, and I don't know if I ever will, maybe. But the but life is funny though, like sometimes it's almost like I felt like I, really kind of took a beating on that second trip. You know what I mean? Like it's like the opposite of what you think when you go on vacation, uh, you know, and like you think you want to have a great time and everything, and it was almost like the opposite of that. So I don't know, just I went, just working and everything, and then I guess it was about 4 months later, I I met Amy, like just online, one of the websites, one of the dating websites, and neither one of us were on there for very long. I mean, it was literally like we were on there for a really short time, like less than a month, and and we just hit it off, like it was like wow, you know, and I'm just like, and then as and then there was about another, like I said, this was like May of 2018, and so we basically were doing just the video chat and all that stuff and texting for about a solid, I don't know, 8 months until uh, early January. Uh, yeah, like January 10th or something like that, I think is when I came finally to see her in 2019. Okay. And that was a very wow, this is kind of could be somewhat emotional here, but I don't know. But my dad was on the way out. You know what I mean? Like he was 92 years old, and his first 90 years were pretty good, man. I mean, he was in pretty damn good shape for a guy that age. But those last couple of years were getting kind of rough. He was just getting dementia and sort of slipping. You know what I mean? Physically losing weight and just stuff like that. I was taking him to the doctor and I was going to see him almost every day, in his condo. I wasn't living with him, I had my apartment and then he had his condo, but I mean, I was over there every day. And finally, it was kind of weird because, and then he, I kind of knew that I was going to try and still come and see Amy, even though I had my dad and no, I had another brother too, right, that could watch him, in the Chicago area that could sort of watch him and stuff while I was gone. And I had another brother that could have even came in during that time from out of town to also help or whatever. So I mean, I could have went either way, right? And it's funny. One time, and one, sorry, one time my dad asked me, he said something like, he was kind of saying like, am I the reason you can't go there right away or whatever, like, um, because I'm taking care of him and stuff. I mean, not like I wasn't living with him, but you know what I mean. I was there like every day, and like he knew, you know what I mean? Like he was like, and I was like, don't worry about it, Dad. I'll don't worry about it. I'll go there, and stuff. I'll go see Amy, but don't worry about it. Like he started realizing that he was like, he's thinking like he was like, like he was like holding me back or something. You know what I mean? Like he uh, he kind of knew that, or he felt that. You know what I mean? And but I was always like, no, no, Dad. As soon as I just no, don't worry about it. And well, what wound up happening was I was trying to get him into a home, like an assisted living situation, right? And since he was a veteran, he was a World War II veteran. They were going to cover it. Like in other words, what happens is the VA would take the Social Security check, and then they would cover the rest, right? Which is quite a bit. Those type of homes are not cheap. This wasn't some cheap. I mean, this was a decent place. You know what I mean? It was actually in Des Plaines. It was in a suburb, and we had been there. We were taking him to different places to figure out where he needed to be. And stuff like that. Like where would be best for him. Close by and everything. We'd come see him all the time and all that. So we finally, we figured on we decided on this place, and then uh, we were trying to get his VA stuff, his paperwork and all that. Well, he didn't. We couldn't find his DD 214. You know, so we had to send for it. Like we had to send. I think it was Kansas City or wherever the military records place was, and that took a little while. You know what I mean? That delayed a little bit, but we did get it. It didn't take forever. It took a month or two, or whatever, but we got it. You know, and then there's kind of a funny story. After the fact, I'll tell you something that's kind of ironic, or whatever. But the so finally, it's like December, right? We're thinking, hey man, I think we can get you in there now, starting in December, at least at some point, like maybe at the end of December, maybe after Christmas or whatever, right? And we were gonna be able to finally get him in there, the assisted living type place, and it was a nice place. Like I said, this was no shitty place. You know what I mean? This wasn't some place where they neglect you and all that, whatever. We made sure, we checked this place out 2, 3 times. We went there. Plus, we went to a couple other places, and we liked this place the best. So finally, we we were gonna get him in there. You know what I mean? And then, uh, I guess a long story short or whatever, but he wound up passing away on Christmas Eve, 2018. And, you know, we, and you know what? It probably turned out the best because he never wound up, like he wound up basically, I mean, he died in the hospital, but he never had to go into an assisted living place. You know what I mean? Which, because nobody would really want to go there. You only go there if you have to go there. You know what I mean? People aren't going to say, oh, yeah, I'm in good shape, but let me go to one of these places. Um, Even though there's activities there, there's other people there. It's a decent place. But still, my dad. I know my dad. You know what I mean? Like, we were close too. He was like my best friend too. And he didn't want to go, but it's just that we couldn't take care of him. You know what I mean? Like he was getting to the point where he really needed that assisted living situation. But as it turned out, before we could get him in there, he passed away. He was in the hospice. He was in the hospital, in the ICU, and then we wound up. He wound up going to a hospice, and then so he was there, and it's like you're knocked out. You're almost like in a coma. They stop feeding and stop fluids and all that, and you just sort of pass naturally He was there for a week, in the hospice. But I mean, there's no pain or anything. You know what I mean? He's just out. Like just, and we were seeing him every day and everything, and but anyway, it was kind of kind of I mean, it was time too. You know what I mean? For him. I mean, he was 92 years old, and he was really couldn't, couldn't really eat on his own anymore and stuff like that. He couldn't function. Um, so anyway, um, so then I guess after that, right? It was maybe 2.5 weeks after that. That's when I came to my first trip with Amy. And you know what? It was great. It really was. It was almost like it was almost like some kind of reward, like finally I got rewarded for not only what I was going through with my dad for that last year and stuff, but even like what I had gone through on that second trip to the Philippines, that I just kind of touched on. You know what I mean? But this was just like wow, like it was just great. You know what I mean? Like we had a great time together. We got along great, you know. And so we started out. It was like Manila, 4 days or something like that, 5 days, and then Bohol, and then Cebu, Dumaguete, and then that was it. And then back to Manila, you know. And yeah, and we started out in Quezon City too. Or no, I'm sorry. Wait a minute. Or yeah, we actually started out. Yeah, we started out in Quezon City. And then the second trip, which was like maybe 5 months later, I came for about almost 2.5, 3 weeks, and we were in Pasay, Manila, pretty much the whole time. And then on the last trip before the pandemic, we were Bohol. I mean, I'm sorry, yeah, Bohol, uh, Bacolod, and Iloilo, and then back to Manila, right? So and my original plan was to come here, like probably toward the end of 2020, you know, and that would have been before my Soch kicked in too. It would have been almost 2 years or so before my Soch. But I thought, well, I had enough to last me I had enough in the bank, to last me, and then thinking that maybe I'll be able to make some other money, like just maybe even doing, still doing some real estate referrals and whatever I could do. It doesn't take a ton of money to live here. You know what I mean? But I mean, any kind of extra to supplement the bank money. I mean, that's how I was thinking, right? So in hindsight, I'm thinking, well, the pandemic probably was a blessing in disguise because the way it turned out. I mean, I just came here in June, and my Soc just kicked in September. You know what I mean? Just so in other words, I was only here for a few 3, 4 months or whatever before my Soc kicked in instead of like 2 years. You know, so that probably worked out for the better. Even though it was a tough 2 years going through all that crap and then just LDR relationship type thing. I mean, it wasn't easy, but you know, in hindsight, like now, looking back on it now, thinking, yeah, it's probably for the better. Um, but that's basically the answer, right? I mean, that's why. Like I've never really been to Thailand, and I would just say, obviously here, English people do speak English here. Sometimes they'll get nosebleeds from it, even in Manila. But they do speak English here. You know what I mean? It's not always their preferred language, obviously. Especially if you're in an area where there's not a lot of foreigners. Then a lot of the Filipinos and even the younger ones, they're gonna sometimes struggle a little bit with it, with English. But it's spoken here. You'll be able to communicate here. You know what I'm saying? Whereas Thailand, I don't know if that's the case. You know, I don't think, I'm pretty sure it's not the case. You know, the overall population over there, it's probably, you know, English is very rare probably over there, you know. You might be able to squeak by, you know, you know enough to sort of squeeze by and point at things and stuff like that over there in Thailand. But, you know, here it's, people do understand you, you know. Just don't talk too fast though, you know what I mean? If you start rattling off like I do sometimes, you know, then people start getting nosebleeds, you know. It's like, slow down, man, you know. So, but anyway, I've been babbling on. This is like a long video. I don't like to make long videos, but this one's kind of long. Oh, you know what? Shout out to BC Dave. Um, I've been watching some of his stuff. He's a newer vlogger. I think he's in the Cavite area, and I believe he's from Canada. And yeah, I watched some of his videos, so I go ahead and check out his channel too. You know, he's kind of like, he tells things as they happen in his life. You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't necessarily crank out 3, 4 videos a week or whatever. You know, but I mean, he just sort of, things will happen and then he'll share it with people. You know, and I've seen watch most of his videos, and yeah, they're pretty good. You know, it's reality too. You know what I mean? It's not just like sunshine and lollipops. You know, you know. And I'm gonna, okay, before, in closing here now, I'm just gonna ask some of you guys. You know, my dad was here in World War II, right, in the Army Infantry, from like basically toward the end of 1944 to probably around the middle of 46. Okay, even after the surrender and everything. After the Japanese surrender, there was still a lot of Japanese soldiers in the Philippines, in the jungles especially, that just either refused to believe that the surrender had happened, you know, or just, you know, or didn't know, like didn't actually know because they were so deep embedded, you know, in the forest, in the jungles and stuff, that they just didn't know, you know. So anyway, so there was fighting going on even after, you know, even after the surrender, probably for almost a solid 6 months or so, you know, into probably early 46. But I guess my question to you guys is, would you guys be interested in hearing about that? Because, you know, my dad told me stories and he wrote a little journal and stuff like that. So probably what I can tell about it from his experiences is probably 10% of what he actually went through. You know what I mean? But it's enough to where, you know, it's pretty interesting. You know what I mean? My dad had a pretty interesting life. I mean, you know, like some of it was tragedy. You know, my mom died when she was young and I was young. You know, she was only 43, so that kind of hit my dad hard. You know, it was a long time ago, 1973. You know, but I'm just saying, if you guys would be interested in hearing it, man, go ahead and comment and let me know. You know, because I wouldn't mind doing a little. It might even take like 3 or 4 parts. You know what I mean? Like little maybe 10-minute parts or something. You know, and just do like 3 or 4 of them to kind of tell some of the what he was doing and stuff over there, some of his experiences, you know. So, all right, guys, that's about it. Uh, I'll talk to you guys later. Sorry for the kind of emotional there earlier. Um, but anyway, uh, have a great holidays. Have a great Christmas, all you guys, and I'll talk to you later. Have a good day too.